Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. It's an interesting Sunday in Southern California. We actually had a little bit of rain yesterday, so Bill, a little bit of a contrast for a change to what's going on in Indiana. This week, um, as I was contemplating what I would write about, um, I received a message from one of my teachers, which precipitated the thought process. So, what I'm going to speak about today um, has to do with what I consider to be an interesting topic from a variety of different perspectives. It has to do with the power of devotion. I'm going to read a quote from a book from my teacher, and I'll go into that a little bit more. If we do not have devotional trust, even the healing Buddha if the healing Buddha in person were standing in front of us, we would receive hardly any benefit. For our minds, which are the only key to our spiritual blossoming, would not open to the opportunity. This is why a Tibetan proverb says, "From whomever one sees as Buddha, blessings are received as from a Buddha. From whomever one sees as a fool, effects come as from a fool." The enlightened nature, ultimate peace and joy, is omnipresent. It is in all of us. Training in devotion is a powerful way to uncover that nature. Seeing the image of a Buddha as endowed with blessing qualities can transform our minds. If we can see and feel the enlightened qualities of this object, we will open our minds to healing. If we can think of the object as blessed and trust in its power, a peaceful and joyful feeling will spontaneously blossom in our minds. And that is from Tulku Thondup, and let me show you his picture. This is one of my teachers in Vajrayana Buddhism. His name is Tulku Thondup, and it's from a book that he wrote called Boundless Healing. His experience has to do, among other things, with the body's ability to heal itself. And the reference to this principle of being able to heal oneself and the devotional component that comes with that has to do with basically belief. So let me continue. One of my teachers, Tulku Thondup, shared this excerpt from the book Boundless Healing. Obviously, this is a Tibetan Buddhist perspective. However, let's look at the teaching from a slightly different perspective. Please take a moment to review the words. But where Buddha is mentioned in the reading, please insert an object of devotion that speaks to you personally. It could be Jesus, God, nature, or Tao, or any other representation of non-local intelligence that you happen to be personally drawn to. Devotion, trust, belief, these are all pivotal concepts. We know the value of being fully committed to a belief or a practice. Our results will surely suffer if we don't truly believe. But the question I ask, and sometimes struggle with myself, is what if we're struggling with belief in the first place? What if we're struggling with this principle of devotion and trust? It seems that our society has placed such a high emphasis on logic, rational congruence, and hard evidence that matters of the spirit seem to make us cringe. What was once an integral part of the natural order seems to connote hints of unthinking dependence and unsophisticated acceptance of antiquated belief systems that are designed to basically keep the rabble in line. My journeys with these issues are really no different than anyone else's. I want to see evidence. I want to see cold, hard facts. But here lies the rub. I do have evidence. It's all around me. How did all of this come into existence? We think that we know basically what all of this stuff is that's around us and what it's made from after years of observation and inquiry. But at the smallest level, what are we really made of? It's essentially space. Derek talked about this last week, about how on the most minuscule level, on a subatomic level, we're really essentially made of nothing, or at least we can't quantify that, what that is that we are made of, and everything that's all around us. So does that mean that it doesn't exist? Well, clearly we do, and clearly what's around us does. So there lies the paradox. So where did we come from? And what is all this stuff that's around us? Are we just one giant cosmic accident? As I've pondered these points, I personally don't believe that we're just some random blip of consciousness on the radar of the universe. So I'll leave you with this. One of the events in my life that was pivotal with respect to essentially believing had to do with when I moved to California. I've been here for about 30 years. I left my past in my former state of Kentucky, and as I mentioned to you guys before, I had kind of a checkered past. I made some bad choices and done some stupid things that were relatively extreme and kind of left me in a pretty bad state. One night, a friend of mine called me up and asked me out here in California to join him in Westwood with a particular group of friends. I agreed to meet him, and I'd never been to this location where we were to meet. When I arrived, there were a couple of hundred people there, and I didn't know any of these folks. Yeah, I started to socialize with them and with my friend who was there. And then about 30 minutes later, I looked up across the room and I saw this guy. I'd known this guy back in Kentucky, and my heart just kind of sank to the floor because the last time I encountered this gentleman, it was really not on favorable terms at all. We'd been adversaries, and there'd been some real bad blood between us due to the fact that some friends of mine had stolen something from him, and I was blamed and involved in the process. And it was not a pretty picture. I mean, it was a pretty nasty deal. And so when I changed my life from living the way that I used to live and having all of that, all the violence and all the negativity and all that stuff, part of the process to right myself had to do with making amends to those who had harmed previously. So it just so happened that this was really about the last guy on my list that I had to make these amends to. I made amends to everybody, and I took this very seriously. I made amends with everyone that I could find, but this person had slipped through the cracks. So I kind of pulled up my bootstraps and I walked over to him, and he was completely surprised to see me. I told him that I needed to make amends for what I'd done, and I'd be willing to write him a check and pay him back right there. And he looked at me and he said, "Look, we were both idiots. Forget about it." We shook hands, gave each other a hug, and then we went our separate ways. And then 3 months later, I found out he killed himself. So let's look at the evidence, because that's what I like. I like evidence. I went to a location in Los Angeles where I had never been before to meet friends that were not associated with my past in any way on one random night. On that very same night, this man who had been flown to Los Angeles via Las Vegas from Kentucky and loaded into a van with 10 other guys who were staying in Van Nuys that decided to come to that meeting in Westwood that one night where none of them had ever been before. And this was the only person left on my list of amends. And he died 3 months later. So, granted, there are some random occurrences in the universe, but you tell me that this was one of them. I thought what could have been the possible cause for this to happen, but in the final analysis, it doesn't matter. The fact is that it actually happened. Nothing in our realm of conscious awareness could have manipulated all of these random circumstances to come together. So when I personally feel doubt, I go back to that time. There are other instances that are similar in my life, but there was nothing that was more clear than that event. So there's something there. As I mentioned before, we call it by different names. We practice devotion in different ways, but it's our intention that creates the result. The one thing that I've definitely learned over the years that I'm certainly no smarter than those who have come before me. And I can learn from the accumulated wisdom of human experience. And human experience is simply an extension, an expression of that form of consciousness that functions through us, even though we may doubt its existence. So maybe with all of our awesome technology and our devices and sophistication, maybe in our search and quest for evidence and logic, we're not quite so smart or as smart as we think that we are. Thanks very much.